Welcome back to the absolutely epic early week podcast. This is week 7. I'm Dean 78904. If you want to get all technical on me, usual suspects are back. Leading off, it's one BobbyFi. Bobby, how did week 6 treat you?
This was my not my best week this year so far. I've actually had a nice profitable year so far, but this week wasn't my best. And I did a lot of things right, but I was so in love with John Brown and Amari Cooper. Kind of crushed me, but I still feel like I'm on it, feeling good, ready for a really, really strange, interesting week 7.
Hey, I'm going to call back last week's show because somebody mentioned, I think it was you, Bobby, somebody mentioned John Brown, and I kind of brushed them off. I'm like, I don't play John Brown. And somebody in the comments said, Dean, that was terrible analysis. And you know what I have to say to you, buddy? Scoreboard. It was actually a pretty good play. And, scoreboard, he didn't do anything, but actually, they didn't really need to do much because Cincinnati, Baltimore beat up on, was it Tennessee? Tennessee's just terrible. They didn't really need John Brown so much. But I don't know why. I'm talking to the guy in comments, Grant, bail me out on this because do give me he wrote like a whole monologue as to why I was wrong about putting Brown.
Yeah, he was saying lazy analysis. You can say all you want about him, but you can say it over and over again. I have certain guys that I won't play for various reasons, like Julio Jones, most of the weeks going forward, it's going to be, I'm not playing him. He's over-owned. He's not as good a play as everyone thinks he is. So I don't feel the need to play him. It'll end up working out more in the long run than it will in the short run sometimes. But it's always
idiotic analysis. This is to have guys you just don't play, and I'm holding up little quotation marks with my fingers right now, is just a dumb way of looking at things. I actually agree with what that guy said. I don't like the way that he wrote it. But I think that it is really, really dumb to say I don't play this guy.
I mean, there are certain situations where I look into it. But, like, this week, I played a lot of Julio Jones this week. I played almost 100% of Julio Jones this week. But they're on every single week, unless something immediately stands out as being overlooked for certain players, they are always going to draw a certain amount of ownership, which in the long run will end up screwing you over. So you have to look at it on a case-by-case scenario, but most of the time it's not a Julio situation. Almost all the time it's not a Julio situation.
Oh man, yeah, Julio was, I guess, I don't know, I didn't love my Julio results, but I didn't hate my Julio results. He still didn't get the touchdown, get in the end zone just yet. But the ironic thing, that guy, and my take on that is, as far as the analysis is, I'm always I'm willing to play anybody for the right price, and I'm willing to pay anybody for the wrong price. So it is pretty lazy to just say I don't play X. But scoreboard, John Brown didn't do anything. But the ironic thing, Grant, last week our question, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Of course, we backload on the nonsense. But just throwing it out there, our question was best dance, right? The person who wrote this big monologue as to why I did a poor job analyzing John Brown, his name was Icky Shuffle 76. Icky Shuffle 76. He had his whole a paragraph or two as to why I had bad analysis. He didn't partake. Icky Shuffle, Grant, did not answer our best dance on a wedding question. How does that happen?
He probably doesn't like to wear shirts, so he doesn't want a free shirt.
I don't understand why it's Icky Shuffle 76. So you'd think it'd be, maybe that's his year he was born, but I was thinking
he was born in 76. Yeah,
I would think of their years, like somewhere in the Bengals years, to if you're gonna have the Icky Shuffle name, I'm sure there aren't that many. I guess maybe there are. Maybe there are on there. Are there that many Icky Shuffles to where one of those years the Bengals?
Oh, Icky Shuffle 75 was taken, so he's like, all right, he kept plugging it in, all right. I guess
that's the year they went to the Super Bowl or something. I don't know. Which I think was 86, wasn't it? Somewhere around there.
They went against the 49ers in the mid-'80s. 89 is what pops in my head, but I could be wrong.
Maybe it was 89. It might have been 89. I might be out.
Yeah, I was not alive then.
All right, we'll move on.
Yeah, well, Grant, the person who sings the Charles in Charge theme song was not alive to watch the Bengals in the Super Bowl. He is an enigma for sure. No more nonsense, guys. We got to talk about Week 7. Week 7 is, it's the shortest slate that we've had so far this season. 10 games because of that. Well, there's 4 teams that are on bye. Packers, Pittsburgh, on bye. Oakland and Seattle flying back from London, they're on bye. There's a Thursday game, as usual. Denver and Arizona, of course, they're not playing in the main slate. Sunday morning London game, not in the main slate. That's Tennessee and the Chargers. And the two games that look really awesome but are not in the main slate is Cincinnati, Kansas City, and the Giants and Atlanta. Saquon Barkley's going to catch like 72 passes in that game. Unfortunately, you cannot get that in the main slate. Bobby, because of this, we're just looking at 10 games here, 20 teams. What jumps out to you? This is the First Look podcast. This is Monday night. We're getting our first gander here. As far as this slate, what's jumping out for you?
I think it's going to be a good GPP slate. We talked about it pre-show, and then our first thing until my internet had some problems. We were talking about some of these games. I like the Minnesota Jets game. I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of ways to go this week, and I think that a lot of attention, will be focused on the Cleveland side of the offensive side of the ball against Tampa Bay. I think people might even overplay Tampa Bay. Cleveland does play really quick, but they have a really good defense, especially their pass defense has been awesome, especially if you factor in the amount of plays that they're playing, which is more than most people. So I'm a big fan of trying to find somewhere else to go. I love this Minnesota-New York Jets game. The Jets numbers are a little misleading because they've had so many big plays this year. They're one of the team leaders in big plays. But I just love this spot for a pass-happy Minnesota offense that I don't know how to play enough Adam Thielen this week. I don't know if 100% is going to be enough for me. So that's what stands out to me. I like that game a lot. I think there's a lot of different places to go, a lot of individual plays. Josh Gordon, somebody we should talk about probably. That's another one of my favorite plays this week. I think there's a lot of places to go, but I'm mostly focusing my attention on that Minnesota Jets game at first look.
Yeah, Adam Thielen, you mentioned him. He's just been absolutely he's a definition of a catch game play, at least in terms of floor. The floor has been so good. He basically starts the week with 3 points because he's going to get 100 yards every single time, at least he has so far this year. At least 10 targets. He's been money every single week. And I haven't really played him a ton just because lineup structure has just kind of been forcing me on cheaper receivers for the most part, but always in play. Grant, I'm hearing like doors opening and closing. I'm not sure. Are you still with us?
Yeah, no, I think that's Bobby. Bobby this week is doing the podcast from in a Brandon warehouse where he's building a fight club right now. Story. So if you hear people going in, that's heavy machinery. They are putting up the ring right now. It is going to be a fight club for only people 7 feet and taller. So guys, be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we already recorded this because there were some technical difficulties. We recorded halfway through, and this is our second go through. And all the guys that I mentioned, Bobby just stole from me right there again. He did mention
you didn't say Josh Gordon. You didn't say any of these.
I most certainly did say Dean.
No, we never spoke about Josh Gordon.
Yes, I mentioned that he had 10 targets, and I need to look at
maybe the internet going out is part of what didn't help.
Oh yeah, that's going to be your.
I'm just impressed that Bobby was listening. That's the surprising part. We're bearing the lead here. But Grant, what is your first look? Because I'll tell you this, like Bobby, of course, more of a GPP brain than myself. I'm more of a cash game brain. The Minnesota Jets game is interesting to me to some degree. And sure, Adam Thielen's just amazing. I don't know if I'm going to get there in cash games for sure. He's a guy I'm looking at in tournaments. And that's not the game that jumped out to me. What are your thoughts as far as that game? Well, don't worry. We'll get the Josh Gordon. You guys can both get your Josh Gordon takes in a second. But feel free to give your takes as far as that Minnesota Jets game. And then, like, what kind of jumps out for you as far as this slate overall?
It's a Jets and Minnesota game is a fantastic game. The Vikings are throwing at a higher rate than pretty much anyone in NFL history. They're going up a team that forces the ball to wide receivers on a week-out basis. And I said it last week, and they went up against the Colts. And, like, the wide receivers actually did quite a bit, even though Luck is the guy that tends to force the ball to both the tight end and the running back, which did not happen too much for either. I mean, obviously, Ebron, I think, got a touchdown, but that's because Andrew Luck makes it a thing to throw to him at least 14, 15 times a game, no matter if he's covered or if he can even catch the ball. That's a really interesting GPP game for quarterbacks. We got the guys up near the top that are potential big spins with Winston going against a tough Cleveland defense. Goff, who just get Jared Goff, but there's always a chance that Gurley takes things off. We got Brady going up against a tough Chicago defense, but Brady's a guy that can destroy anyone at any given time, especially with all the weapons he has. Now with Josh Gordon a little bit healthier and Edelman back, so he, I think, is potentially the cash game play. Him or Baker. Cleveland has just so many different guys that you can probably go with this week, with Callaway, with Ratley or Higgins. I can't remember if Higgins is injured or whatever, but Ratley's the guy that came in, took over for him, and I don't know if he'll be out this weekend. But Mayfield is finally in a good matchup, and he's had tough defensive matchups for weeks, and now it's a different situation. Then, we already mentioned. We'll get to your guy. Go ahead and talk to us about your guy that you're looking at.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're talking about Higgins and Ratley. Ratley was questionable. I think he got hurt that game. They want to – again, this is Monday. They think he's going to be healthy. But I want to say I saw a tweet where they basically finished that game with essentially two healthy wide receivers, not counting Njoku, of course, the tight end. And, we talked about – or Bobby talked about his week last week, and my week was taken down. I salvaged. It wasn't as awful as I thought it was going to be, but it was my first negative week in a few for sure. But I had way too much Landry. Landry was an absolute disaster, and he was like I think 6'8" or 6'9" on DK. And despite the fact he was a disaster, his price has now jumped up to 7-3. That matchup against Tampa really jumps off the board. So I'm certainly intrigued. And Callaway has just been one of the worst, if not the worst, wide receiver in all of football. But if he's going to get, if he's going to be on the field for every single snap, basically.
Why do you say he's the worst? His low catch percentage?
Yeah, he's not catching the ball.
But that's because Baker Mayfield overthrows him by 20 yards every time. Everyone thinks this.
No, I've seen so many plays.
The ball. He doesn't drop the ball. He's getting – these throws are nowhere near him mostly. Almost all of his targets are on literally these bomb plays they try a million times a game, which is, again, why he's always a great GPP play. But these are not on Callaway. It's not like he's dropping all these passes. It's not like he's,
He had a drop last week. He for sure had a drop last week.
No, I'm sure he's had some drops. I'm just saying that they're not all like that. It's not like he's dropping 5 balls every game.
I feel like this has been said about Zay Jones before. And Zay Jones is still Zay Jones.
He just got a touchdown last week.
Wow, 1 game sample size. That really.
I had him a little bit last week.
That's a ballsy move.
Yeah, I know. I went for it there with Zay Jones. I was like, I'm very big on gambling on these really cheap receivers. He had 12.5 fantasy points. Like, it wasn't like a terrible gamble for a minimum cost guy. I was just trying to take shots in a team that I thought would be passing a lot. I just didn't happen to click the Albert Wilson button, which, by the way, why haven't we talked about him?
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot. We probably should talk about him.
That's not happening again. If you guys want to chase Albert,
it's not chasing. First of all, it's not chasing when no one else does it. The fact that he was owned by – here's what's amazing to me. He was owned by between 0.4 and 0.8%, 0.8 of 1% in tournaments. And yet everybody who won every tournament, even smaller ones, where he was only owned by a few people, had him on the lineup. Not only because he smashed by so much, but partly because their lineup construction led them to play Gordon and Gurley together, which worked out.
They went with Brock Osweiler too, and when you have 60.
No. That's just for the millionaire. I'm talking about for every tournament.
Brock Osweiler was 4.8% or 0.48% used, same as Albert.
Yeah, but he's not on all the winning lineups. I'm just saying I went through all the winning lineups today because I already had to do this. I literally did. So, and he's on all of them, pretty much all of them. And he was more like of a play that we should have considered. And it's not like he's going to be. You think he's going to be like a chalky receiver this week?
No. This is an aberration.
But he's done it like he's justified this price 2.5 times so far this year in 6 games, and when he's destroyed it twice. So why wouldn't we take a shot on a guy with big playability in a game where they'll be throwing the ball a lot when no one else is going to? Like, it doesn't matter. It's not chasing if it's doable. It happened 3 weeks ago too.
I mean,
big plays. I'm not going to do it. I don't think I do not plan on playing. You know what? When we have our wager later on the show, you can take Albert Wilson.
But Dean, my overall point though is what's important is like if you would just took this stand and you played the top guys who you know you're going to get this massive workload, the Gordons, the Gurleys, and you played them with these minimum cost guys, you'd hit on them. If you played Robbie Anderson the week before, you even if you rotated them at all 10%, you could just Dean it up. Find 10 guys like that. One of them is going to go nuts, and on those 10%, you'll have a chance to win tournaments.
I agree with Bobby here.
It's so true. It's exactly what's happening. It's so clear. And I feel like it's a really clear path the rest of the way. You stars and scrubs it.
It's been a clear path the rest of the way. It's been the clear path for the last year.
No, it hasn't though. I don't think it's always been the case. And it just in my opinion, I think it's a little bit different now. I feel like there's there's more like the guys who were 3,800 could put up 35 now. And I feel like before they were putting up like 20 or 25 when they were having big games. Now it's like you're getting the top scores of the day, like at near minimum cost almost every week, or like close to the top scorer of the day. Then you're also,
no, I think it's two different things you're saying. You're saying,
I'm
you're saying
specifically.
I'm not saying specifically on him, but as a strategy, I hear you. I agree.
That's just not what
I prefer
take shots on these minimum costs. Like if nobody would have thought about Jermaine Kearse last week, and he almost had like a really monster week. Like, I mean, just saying, like,
wait, no one would have thought about Jermaine Kearse going up against a team that gives up a bunch of stuff against in the middle.
Jermaine Kearse wasn't even like, he wasn't point anything percent owned. He was a 0% owned.
That was because of injury though. Anunwa got hurt. That's open.
Grant, he got his numbers because Anunwa got hurt. He could play him this week. Anunwa was hurt, but he was going to get zero work. Zero. It was not like going to be a Jermaine Kearse week.
We already knew Anunwa was partially hurt at the beginning.
No, he wasn't. You should play Robbie Anderson then. All right, whatever. I'm not going to buy into this Anunwa.
The cast on his hand.
If you think Jermaine Kearse was a good play going into the week as a number 3 receiver in that game, I played the other 2 receivers, so maybe I was just wrong. But it wasn't that he was a great receiver; it was that Anunwa got hurt. That was it.
You guys like Kearse this week with Numa being out for 3 to 4 weeks, so
sure,
it's going to be Kearse's body or 4.1K. Is he in the mix, Bobby? You're talking about rolling out a couple stud running backs and some cheap receivers. You got to think that Kearse is probably going to be maybe even a cash game playable guy. I think we'll talk about Baltimore receivers in a second because I think those guys are certainly conversation for cash as well. Nice matchup against the New Orleans. They're all kind of sort of priced down. But Kearse at 4K, if you're looking for a cheap receiver, a guy that should hang out in the slot and probably get, 7 or 8 or 9 targets or so. Not a major monster upside, but he feels like he's got a decent floor. Is that enough for you to throw him in the Albert Wilson conversation there, Bobby?
Absolutely. But I would prefer to play Albert Wilson for tournaments because of the upside. I don't even know if I would prefer to play Albert Wilson. I got to figure it out because I like that game so much. So I will have some exposure. I don't want to say something that's going to come back to haunt me later in the week. I'm more interested in Robbie Anderson just because of the home run upside, obviously. But I like this game, so I'm trying to figure out which guys I want to rotate. Obviously, Kearse is one of them just because of the bodies, and that's the situation. But it's not like I think Minnesota's defense is terrible. So their offense is really fast, and they play a pass-happy offense. The Jets have big score, big playability. It's like this game could easily turn into a weird shootout, especially the fact that it's in New York. I just like this. I like the way this game could end up playing out. It could be a really high-scoring game that people aren't really ready for. I think more people – also, we didn't talk about it, but I think a lot of people will focus on the Baltimore passing attack, even though it wasn't great. Obviously, Brown hurt a lot of people last week. I still think a ton of people are going to play that passing game.
Yeah, since we're there, I wanted to bring a little bit of structure here and talk about the quarterbacks at first. But since you brought up the Baltimore receivers, John Brown and all his air yards at 5.7K versus New Orleans. The New Orleans secondary, it's been burned a ton. Lattimore left last game with a concussion. I'm not really sure what his status will be because they had an off week. He might be back. I believe it's his second concussion, so maybe they held him out another week. Not really sure, but nonetheless, either way, that secondary, that defense has not been good. It's been absolutely burned a ton. You got Crabtree at 5.1K, and then you got good old Willie Snead, not the third, not the fifth, but the fourth, with some revenge game, and he's 4K. All 3 guys for me are in play, Grant. Do you have sort of an order as far as your interest, as far as Brown, Crabtree, on Snead? Of course, we're looking at the DraftKings pricing. 5.7K for Brown, 5.1 for Crabtree, and Snead at 4K. What say you, Grant?
So you said I was a crazy person for wanting to go with John Brown last week, and turns out you were right. Sucks to be me. But a lot of people ended up getting on him, and what's changed this week? Not a whole lot's changed. He was still a guy with double-digit targets. I think 14 targets the week before. He's still a guy that is going to probably end up with 8, 9, 10, 11 targets. He's a guy with big play potential with a quarterback that can throw the ball deep downfield in what should be a very high-scoring game here. So the main thing is with Tennessee, they just don't give up huge plays that often. It just doesn't really happen. I think they're 26th in the league in terms of 20-plus yard plays, and I want to say 30th in the league in terms of 40-plus yard plays. And now it's a matchup versus the Saints, whose defense has not been fantastic this week. They're middle of the pack in terms of both those categories this year. I like John Brown the most. I expect Crabtree and what's his name? I can't remember his name. Snead to both be operating a little bit shorter field distances. So any one of these three could end up with a big game. But I think John Brown's a much more likely target, and I think he's going to just absolutely crush this week if Lattimore is out. And even if Lattimore is in, I think that he has a chance to crush.
Bobby?
I'm going to say because the touchdown equity, that Crabtree is the best play in this game. Now, I know he hasn't put up the touchdowns this year necessarily. The targets are there. The thing is, he runs so many pass routes that are shorter distance. It's almost like a modern, like a little bit like Landry style. He gets so many targets. He gets so much work towards him, which pretty much everybody in the Baltimore passing game does these days. But Crabtree can be really, really good when you're playing inside the 20s, and I think that's going to be the case a lot on Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see like a 2-3 touchdown game out of a guy like Crabtree. John Brown is the one who jumps out initially, but again, I ended up pivoting a little bit, not nearly enough. I had to make some second half adjustments at the end of the week, so I threw in some Crabtree at the end, but not nearly enough because this week I think that Crabtree is the best play, and I think that Snead is a great play too. I think that it will depend somewhat on ownership for me. If for any reason Crabtree is like higher owned than Brown, which should never happen here, I would jump over to John Brown. But just factoring everything in, I think that Crabtree is my favorite GPP play in this game so far.
I think Flacco is going to be a top 3 owned quarterback in tournaments, if for no other reason on DraftKings. It's just so easy to pair the receivers. They're so cheap, and you can pair one or pair 2 receivers, and, of course, the matchup is prime against New Orleans. Grant, what do we do on the other side? Let's knock out the rest of this game. Kamara, of course, is 8.5K. Ingram is back. Ingram actually outsnapped Kamara the first game there Monday night. Kamara now is down to 8.5K. Ingram at 5.9K. The matchup's not good. I mean, sure, in tournaments you can always play Kamara, but for me it feels like a stay away. Just it doesn't seem necessary. And, of course, get to a guy like Gurley, I suppose you can double down at elite running back, but that's more of a tournament strategy. What's your take as far as Kamara and just the rest of the New Orleans offense?
So, I mean, it is a tough matchup, but this is Alvin Kamara. It's going to be a situation similar to what we saw last year, only I think that it favors Kamara more this year than it does last year, considering that most teams are going away from the run a little bit, and New Orleans was going way more towards the run last year, and now with the rule changes could very easily change. You have everyone that just got slaughtered by Kamara last week, where they're not going to trust him this week, especially with guys like Zeke or McCaffrey in the same price range, a little bit lower, and then Gurley for just $1,300 more, where you're not going to get much ownership on him. He could end up putting up 5, 6, 7 points in this matchup, as he can pretty much any single matchup where Mark Ingram is in there, because you don't know exactly what his usage is going to be, but there's also the potential that he could end up putting 30 points in there. Like we see, this isn't sustainable or terribly sustainable, the pace at which he's producing here. And with a timeshare, you don't really want to pay 8.5K for a running back, but he's always in play for tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, he put 6.9 points up in that game against Washington. I feel like that's an absolute anomaly, but I don't think he's going to put up 40.
I think that happened once or twice last year, too.
Yeah, Bobby, you have a take? For me, it's just mostly my first look is it's a stay away. It doesn't seem necessary. Like, I'm not panicking. I don't think he's going to be this guy the rest of the way, obviously. But, I picked my spots as far as the matchup, and this one's not jumping out for me. How about yourself, Bobby?
It's such a bad play, it's almost good. That's the way I look at it. Like, if there was zero ownership at all, I think you have to jump and get ahead of the field just with the upside. But that's not going to be the case. So,
I mean, 5%? It's not. I don't think he's going to be that heavily owned. Again, it's a 10-game.
If he's 5% and I script this week, which I probably will again, I would probably go 10 or 15 just because you have to be – I mean, it's 2 in the cards for him to get 40. And by the way, his floor is much higher than people think it is still. Like, it's not like he's going to put up – like, he's not going to put up 6 again. His floor is not like – his floor is still 16-ish.
That was a long game for sure.
Week 14 last year, 5.7 points. Week 18 last year.
You're picking 2 weeks out of a season. Good job, Grant.
Week 18.
2 weeks out of a season?
You pick 2 weeks out of an entire year on a timeshare.
Okay, how about this? On a timeshare. So exactly.
That is your example. That's a really, 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 really dumb argument.
Okay, sorry. 3 of the last 7 weeks. How about, or 3 of the last 8, 9 weeks. How about that?
You can't keep making up numbers. These are huge differences.
5 weeks this year. 5 weeks.
3 out of 9 is a huge difference. It's almost half to. That's nuts. It's almost half to 33%.
All right, so 25% of the last 12 games, he has had less than 10.3 points. He had less than 16 points.
That's why you don't play him if he's chalky. But there's 45-point upside.
You just said I was arguing the 16-point floor. That's not his floor. His floor is 6.
Okay, so his actual final floor is technically 6, but everybody has a. I mean, it's how you define floor. His realistic floor, what I expect on the downside of this game, is somewhere between 14 and 18.
I mean, yeah.
There's a game last year, by the way, Grant, that I believe he got concussed like right in the first drive or two or something like that. You might be citing that for what it's worth.
Nice job, Grant. Yeah, spot that one out next time. Dean had to.
I'm pretty sure that happened last year, if I recall correctly. We're getting off the rails, so let's jump position by position. Our takes are out there as far as Kamara. We talked about Flacco in that game is certainly interesting, and he's super cheap as well. Again, we kind of go off DraftKings on this slate just because. Well, hey, it's a first look on Monday. We're not going to be jumping from site to site. And Flacco's 5.4K in a prime matchup versus New Orleans defense that's not very good. I think Mayfield, despite the fact he struggled of late, is prime for a nice matchup here against Tampa. I know he's dealing with an ankle, but they said he's fine. He's 5.8K. Brady is 6.1. If you want to spend all the way up on Goff, I have no problem with that at 6.6K. Grant, at quarterback, who's jumping out for you?
I mean, yeah, you mentioned most of the guys. For me, it's Flacco. If you're going cheap, it's Flacco or it's Mayfield. Those guys are the two most likely candidates to put up 30-point games, which is now seemingly required any given week. And I mean, I guess any quarterback can do it if Brock Osweiler can, but you pretty much need a huge game out of your quarterback. This isn't like last year where you get 15 out of your quarterback and he's cheap and you're like, oh yeah, this is fine. I'll be all right. I can still win. No, you can't win big field tournaments like that. So Baker and Flacco at the low end. I love Brady as price tag of 6,100. Chicago's a very good defense, but this is Bill Belichick, and he can pretty much exploit anyone here. And then Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins there at the top are both fantastic plays. I mean, we already mentioned Cousins and how fantastic of a play he'll be this week. I think he puts up 400 yards, like 80% of them going to both Diggs and Thielen. And I think he puts up 4 touchdowns here. Everyone's going to look at what happened with Murray last week, but he did break off a big run. They were going from ahead most of the time, and so Kirk Cousins wasn't that heavily involved later on in the game. And Jared Goff, like, San Francisco is still a team that can keep games close. We saw it tonight with Green Bay. I think that they can do it with against the Rams, considering that both the Broncos and the Seahawks did in the last 2 weeks as a 10.5 spread here, but they still have a 31 implied team total. Gurley's going to have one of these weeks where he only ends up with 1 touchdown here sometime soon, and that means that a lot more touchdowns are going to both Robert Woods and Cooks and everyone else on the team. And so Jared Goff's going to be airing out and could very easily end up with a 6-touchdown game. And, I mean, people forget that Gurley can end up with 2 receiving touchdowns in a game too, which even helps Goff.
Yeah, but you mentioned Brady. Who are you most likely to stack Brady with? You talking about Gordon?
James White and Josh Gordon.
And is Gronk just not going to happen this year? Is that what's the story?
Wait, did you watch the game last night? They did a nice job of
he had one big play.
Used him for all the plays at the end. I mean, for pretty much.
They threw the ball to him 4 times. I need more than 4 targets. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't play Gronk. Nobody's saying to play Gronk.
Oh, who are you talking about? I thought I was talking about Gronk.
I just thought that was obvious not to play Gronk at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's obvious
not
to play him. He's still Gronk. Yeah.
Is he?
He's just, for whatever reason, he hasn't been unleashed just yet. I don't know why he hasn't
for a while.
I mean, that's the thing in New England, though. You don't really know if these guys are injured or they're injured.
6K is pretty cheap for his upside.
Yeah. And, I mean, the one thing we know, if there's one thing we know with Bill Belichick in fantasy is on a week-to-week basis, whatever you think's going to happen, he's going to decide to screw you over pretty darn badly.
Yeah, would it surprise any of us if he had 6 for 130 and 2 touchdowns? No.
Well, what's your take, Bobby, as far as who you're going to pair with Brady? Is it White for you as well at 6.9K? That's a little bit pricey.
I'm not playing Brady. I believe in this Bears defense. I also believe in the team in general.
The Bears defense that gave it 380 yards to Brock Osweiler.
Brock Osweiler disagrees.
Hey, man, whatever happens, games happen every year. That I still think that, Minnesota was a good defense last week, and I got crap for it for recommending them after they gave up, 28 to the
They've
Bills.
been bad this year. Minnesota's just been bad.
Well, they were pretty damn good against Philadelphia, except for some garbage touchdowns at the end. Otherwise, they would have been the top scoring defense that week. So I'm just saying, like, in terms of fantasy, anyway, that's what we're talking about, I thought. But, yeah, you want to know the best.
The Osweiler thing, by the way, is a lot of yak for what it's worth. A lot of Wilson yak. Do we have any interest in these cheap quarterbacks?
I didn't even talk about quarterbacks at all. I didn't get to say anything.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to talk about Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff are the best two plays on the board, in my opinion, other than the most obvious play in history, which I don't care where he's playing. I don't care who he's playing. I don't care what the situation is, especially if you think the game's going to be competitive and you're going to charge $5,700 for Drew Brees. I don't care. I just don't care. You have the top scoring quarterback on the slate by a decent amount, and he's priced as the 13th best quarterback. And we're going to have
you're saying Brees will be a top scoring quarterback this week?
He's the highest scoring quarterback overall for the season on the slate, fantasy-wise, by a good amount.
Yeah, we care about it's not. Yeah, he doesn't get all the touchdowns.
But he's the 13th highest price guy. Let me finish my point. What is the risk here when you think the game's going to be close? You're worried about putting him out there because the defense is good. Don't worry about the defense. Drew Brees at 5,700 is way too cheap. That's your cash game play. It's a lock too. Like, I don't understand it. Like, he's going to put up 20 fantasy points in any competitive game pretty much, unless something weird happens, which it did happen a couple times. But this is a different year than last year. Drew Brees is just way too cheap. He gets there way more often than not. I think he's safe, and I think he has obviously Drew Brees-like upside. So 5,700, he's probably the best play on the board other than my two favorites at the top, but that's because I like the stacks.
I mean, he is my golf buddy, Bobby, so I would know better. He already called me and said, I'm not going to have a good week this week.
He told you that?
He called me and told me that. That's our Monday night golf game where I fly out to whatever city he's in, go golfing with him. I completely.
It's a weird thing for him to bring up just for no particular reason.
No, I completely overlooked Brees, Bobby. I still don't know if he is the best play on the board. I think Bobby's right. Probably in cash, it's still a very, very good idea. I mean, with Ingram being in there, they are going to be running the ball more. He may be the highest scoring quarterback of the season, but he did have 8 points against New York, and he does have Ingram back in this offense, which can.
But that game against New York, they were up by a ton, and they just pounded the ball the rest of the game. So, and he didn't get the touchdown love because of Kamara broke 2 off early. So, like, that was just a situational thing, and yeah, that could happen. But, like, we don't think they're going to run away with this game at Baltimore.
I mean, it could end up like the Cleveland game. It's a very very similar situation.
That's closer, yeah, because Cleveland is a legit high-end defense regardless of what happened this last week against the Chargers. They actually are a legit defense. Look at the teams they've played, how tough they've played them in tough spots. But I still think that the upside is just so – I mean, it's Drew Brees. Like, just bet on the offense in modern day football, and I feel like he's safe with upside. I don't think there's really any risk. For me, that if I was playing cash, he'd be my number one guy, and I'll play him in tournaments too because people aren't going to play him. They're going to play Baker Mayfield more than they play him, and I know the matchup is much better, but Drew Brees in a close game, that's enough. That's automatically, potential 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in the modern day NFL. That's a potential. That's legitimate. Baker Mayfield, we don't even know what this guy can do.
I agree with you that, like, if you're on team, like, defenses don't matter. Obviously, this is, like, the great – on FanDuel, I know the prices, but I imagine the price on FanDuel is probably just standard, so you just don't look at it because, why are you going to pick on Baltimore? You don't have to. But DK kind of forces you to think about it. And it is weird that people are going to be playing Mayfield for $100 more than Drew Brees just because of the matchup. And some people say defenses don't matter. I think location of the game matters too, especially when it comes to Brees and that offense. I want him in the dome. So you kind of got to factor that in as well too. And Baltimore, just not a fun place to play in general. But he's certainly in the mix just because the price kind of forces you there. Grant, you have any more takes as far as quarterbacks? Or shall we move on and talk about, are there any cheap running backs that kind of jump out for you?
How cheap do you think is cheap?
Wait, there's a cheap quarterback that's good.
We just talked about a cheap quarterback that's good.
No,
Bobby, we moved on to quarterback.
Okay, well, there's one more cheap one, and it's your guy. I thought you were going to name him.
Is it Blake Bortles, the greatest QB of all time?
No, it's that I think you got to keep taking shots against this Rams team with the pace they play. I know their defense is good, but I think this Beathard is pretty good. And I think at 48, if you want to do something kind of interesting, this guy's pretty good. He has a pretty good rapport with obviously the guy he's been with since freaking grade school or whatever, however long, since 2013, the tight end Kittle. But also with Goodwin, or even taking a shot with a guy like Garcon, who didn't get as many targets tonight, but had 12, I think, the week before. I just think that that's like kind of interesting in the way that Rams play. Everybody seems to get flooded. Nobody played the receivers from the Broncos this weekend, and I couldn't figure out why, because they're just going to get so many opportunities. So I like him, and I like the Niners passing game.
Yeah. I actually played Beathard and Cash on one website, which just because they had a drastic pricing disparity. It's not any of the big ones. They entered out. No, it was Fanball when I played there Monday through Thursday slate. He was just drastically underpriced. But that actually brings me into one of the best, cheaper running backs on the entire slate, which is Matt Breida. 5,300 here. He is going up against the Ram teams. It gives up tons of receiving out of the backfield there. Their defense, they're going to be coming from behind. We know that Beathard loves to dump the ball off. He may not have done it as much in this game. I can't remember. I didn't watch it fully because I was doing work, so I was only half in there, half out. And then also Carlos Hyde at 4,700 here has huge touchdown equity because they're always running him in the red zone there. So he could do it. And then I need to look into Hines because he was just not involved in this offense. I don't know if it's because of Matt coming back and then having more time to be in there and more acclimation to the offense, but Hines is still a guy that can end up breaking off a big run, can end up with 10 targets in any game. I mean, he has 39 targets on the season. If we had a wide receiver with 39 targets on the season for 4,300 when he was only playing half the game for the first few weeks of the season, I mean, wouldn't we think about that?
Did you see the touchdown drops last week, the two?
No, I wasn't watching it. The Hines dropped 2 of them.
Yeah, he dropped 2, but one of them they ended up calling penalty on, so it wouldn't have mattered. But the other one, and I mean, it was like the biggest. It was a wide open touchdown drop. Like, it was really bad. Anyway, Grant, I love your point about Breida. I just want to point out, though, after watching this game tonight, and being in San Francisco while I was watching this game, I'm even more convinced he's not quite right, and he played great still. Like, he's great. I think he's really good. He's underpriced. I think it may be the sneaky play of the week for one of these guys who could really go off in a game environment that could get out of hand. If it was in LA, I might even like this play a little bit better. And it's going to sound nuts, but it's the other guy. It's Raheem.
You mean, isn't he priced at minimum price here? Let me double check here. Yeah, he's minimum, or is 3,300 here. They obviously don't care about Morris. Main thing is it's all about Breida's health. I mean,
no, but you could see that most this guy could move, and I know it was the Packers defense, but like the Rams can give up big stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, kind of interesting, like a guy maybe you take a flyer on, and like, you know, we're back in the world where maybe 20 fantasy points from a player can get you there. We thought for a minute that it was going to take 30 from everybody, even the minimum cost guys. Now maybe 20 points from a 3,300 guy could be a nice little play. Yeah,
and something to keep in mind, guys, is that he was playing on the Monday night game, so they didn't have a chance to bump up the salary. So that's clearly a misprice, considering no one knew that Alfred Morris is the third-string running back now for some reason.
And Breida's not getting
Al Spencer passed.
Banged up. It looks like definitely banged up. He would have gotten a lot more touches tonight if he wasn't.
Yeah.
Grant, we talked pre-show briefly, and you wanted to talk about Cohen on the Chicago side.
Yeah. So he's the other guy I was going to mention here. Nagy clearly loves him in the offense. I mean, we have a guy here who had 10 targets last week. That's 10. That's double digits there. A guy with huge playmaking ability. I mean, is anyone ever going to be surprised if he breaks off a 40, 50-yard run in any given game or 40, 50-yard catch? Jordan Howard seems to be not nearly as relevant. And the fact that Cohen may even end up with 13 runs along with 8 to 10 targets and a lot of dump-offs going up against a New England team where they're going to be coming from behind in all likelihood, passing the ball a ton. They don't really trust Trubisky to really air it out there, so they're going to design plays for Cohen to do something with the ball in his hand. And, I mean, he's had 33 points 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I guess, before it's bye, and then 24 points last week. I think he's maybe not – he could even be a cash game guy. I mean, realistically, this guy is Chris Thompson last year. That's what he is.
I love Tariq Cohen. I'm like the biggest Tariq Cohen fan. I think that the best player on the best player on the Bears is Khalil Mack. The second best player is Tariq Cohen. I really believe this, and I just don't know how much work I actually think because of the work he could get in this kind of a game at home, the Jordan Howard now the problem, with Cohen is the situation, and Howard is a legitimately good running back. So these guys, even when their numbers fall and it's not they're struggling. It's just that there's only so many guys you can go to. This team has a lot of weapons actually, and kind of a weird guy to get him the ball. So Cohen actually makes sense a lot to play a lot. Like, I'm not saying play Trubisky today, but I'm saying like he makes sense as doing well with Trubisky in general. But I think that Howard could just be sneaky just because you might see we saw this happen last year where there'd be these weeks like 2 or 3 in a row where Cohen would go nuts. And then all of a sudden Howard would have like 3 games in a row where he ran the ball like 24 times for 100+ yards and a touchdown or 2 at least.
Who was their coach last year?
No, fair enough point. That's a fair enough point. But I still think there's an outside chance, like at 5,500, you have a guy who can still be a workhorse back. It still has had 20+ touches and actually his number.
Yeah, he's not getting 20.
If you look at the snap counts,
he's had 20 targets 3 times and started 20 touches 3 times so far. Or no, yeah, that was kind of targets. But 19+ touches 3 times out of 5 games. Like, I just think he's still like an interesting play.
Yeah, Howard's snap count's gone down to like 50% or so at this point. And you talk about Love and Cohen. I think Cohen's a great athlete. I love the backward split when he scores on touchdowns. You don't get any DFS points for that. You should. That definitely should be factored in. I love players that play. I like players that are on the field. I like volume, and I'm just not sure who's going to play. It's going to be basically like a 50-50 split. One of these guys probably is going to have a really good game. The other one probably not so much.
The thing is that this is full point PPR format. This is an Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram light scenario last year.
And sure. Very light.
Yeah,
sure. No, and you're right. If Drew Brees was the quarterback in Chicago right now, I would be saying Tariq Cohen at 5,100 is a joke. I would say that's 25 on layaway. Drew Brees will get the best player of the ball.
Another comp could be James White and Sonny Michel in the same game.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. Michelle, yeah, I totally agree. And I love Cohen. I'm not saying I don't like Cohen this week. I was just thinking off the board, I wouldn't be surprised if you see these weeks of out of Howard coming up. And Grant, you did forget a couple of cheap guys. Can I just mention a couple of cheap ones that we should look at?
No, you're not allowed to. Shut up.
That's it. We're done. Moving on.
Who? Powell?
We have to look at Peyton Barber. We really do. I mentioned him really briefly just before. Whoever we think is going to get the touches, I think Jones is going to be the guy. Maybe this is even a time to take a shot. I just think that
we don't have to look at Peyton Barber.
This Tampa team moves the ball so much, so quick, and they have a fast-scoring offense that you combine with the team that plays the second fastest pace in the NFL, even though they play good defense, but they funnel things towards the running back, and all these running backs are minimum cost. Like, I think that there's a good chance one gets over 20 and gets there. I just think it's kind of interesting. Like, I'm not saying it's the most exciting play in the world, but it's the same way I felt about it this week. And the other guy I'm just surprised you didn't mention is in the same game. I don't think it's a Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde's getting like 30%. He plays like 30% of the snaps. He does get a lot of work when he plays because he's getting goal line kick work. But if I'm going to play anybody from Cleveland in this game at running back, it's going to be Duke Johnson. This is a textbook Duke Johnson game, especially the fact that it's on the road. You have Tampa, what are they going to be actually, what is this game? Who's the favorite? I don't even have the spread.
We got Tampa as a 3-point favorite.
Yeah, okay, so Tampa is a small favorite. I like Duke Johnson in this spot. I just feel like this could be like a little one of those – old Duke Johnson spots. And then the last guy I mentioned, these are not fun plays. We're digging for weird ones down towards the bottom. And guys like Crowell can always break off too. And Hines, Grant made some good points about, the receiving, how many targets he's getting. This is not a fun play. I just want to make a point that at some point Lamar Miller is going to crush his value.
Oh,
yeah, don't keep playing it until that happens.
Foreman's coming back too. With Foreman coming back, it's really going to mess things up.
I know no one's going to no one's going to like this on me. I'm just saying, only if just to anti-troll myself. Like if he goes for 3 touchdowns, because I'm probably not going to play him this week. If he goes for 3 touchdowns at 4,200, I'm going to be banging my head against the wall because I just play him like 25% all the time. He never gets there.
Jackson was going to sack Watson like
he got
10
there
times.
like twice for me in like a huge way, and I think it's just stuck in my head. And it was like his only 2 big games ever. Anyway, sorry, I'm done.
Let's move on and knock out some receivers, guys. I look for value at receivers. Typically, of course, here's some great plays up top. We talked about Thielen. Adam Thielen at 8.6K kind of jumps off the board. I'm interested in Landry. The volume should be there despite it not happening last week. You got to bust that Men in Black mind eraser like it didn't happen. It seems like a good spot here once again, despite the fact he's over 7K. Talk about the Baltimore receivers that are really interesting to me. We talked about the New England guys are the running backs. So this is a poor man's this and a poor man's that. Grant, I got the poor man's Tyreek Hill. We got Gabriel at 4.7K. It's Taylor Gabriel against the Patriots. He's typically, not the kind of sort of a gadget player to some degree, but they scheme and they make sure to get the ball in his hands. They give him a run every once in a while too. I'm not saying I'm going to play him in cash games. He's not the cash game type, but maybe he's in the conversation for me, at least as of Monday. What are your thoughts as far as Taylor Gabriel, poor man's Tyreek Hill, or anybody else as far as the receivers?
I'd much rather play Chester Rogers, who's had triple-digit or double-digit targets in 3 straight games. People just aren't happy with what he's doing. But if T.Y. Hilton's out again, if Doyle's out again, then Chester Rogers is clearly the better play. I don't mind Gabriel, but he's not getting – this is a game – I guess Chicago was ahead for most of that game, so they probably weren't passing as much as I remember. They do a lot. There's just too many guys that can get targets there. Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, and Cohen, all 3 can eat up a bunch of targets from Gabriel there. So I'm not a huge fan of his target share overall, even though he could end up with 10 targets in this game. And he could break one to the house at any given time. So I wouldn't go with him. We already mentioned a little bit with Cleveland. I don't know if it was this show or the last time we recorded the show. I don't know. But Callaway and Ratley, or Callaway and Higgins, whoever the third wide receiver is, and Callaway going against the worst cornerbacks in the league that anyone can make look good or look that anyone can make those wide receivers. You get what I'm saying. I can't even get the words out of my mouth. But Jermaine Kearse, if Enunwa is out, Pryor's banged up. Jermaine Kearse is a fantastic red zone target. Bobby, someone opened the door of the warehouse. Run. But Jermaine Kearse is going to go ham this week at 4,100. He had 10 targets last week. He's going to be more involved in the offense without Enunwa there. Wants a safety blanket. Everyone, this Minnesota defense is good, but they're going to be up, and the Jets are going to be passing quite a bit. So I really, really like Jermaine Kearse. And then at the top, in the more mid-tier, Josh Gordon. He's a boomer bust play that I've gambled on way too many times, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But he has the talent that no one else in this range has. And then obviously John Brown, if you want something that, and not even safer, I guess, just another huge upside play.
Get all the air yards. What are your takes there, Bobby, as far as receivers?
Yeah, but I would just mention that Robbie Anderson would be my preferred choice at running it back in that game. Again, for the upside ability, but I do what probably will be lower ownership, which is really weird. But yeah, I would probably rather play Robbie Anderson, but I like those guys. Anyway.
Yeah, Bobby, Vikings have given up the most 40-plus yard plays to opposing offenses in the league this year. So, yeah, I guess Robbie Anderson's there too.
Yeah.
They also lost their rookie corner out of the national champs for UCF, so their defense got even worse.
Oh, my God. Get out. You found a way to drop a UCF reference. Nice job, Dino.
Represent!
I think that there's some interesting receivers. So I think that you pay for Adam Thielen. First of all, you play for this guy for safety every week, and I play him every week anyway. But there is not a better matchup in the world that he could be facing right now. You have the team that's been the worst against the slot in the NFL, basically, that funnels everything to that position. And then you have the worst slot corner who's banged up, who plays the position. It's just a great spot. And I think it's on the road. It should be a high tempo game. I really like, and I'm just going to pay up for him, play some of the Jets guys. I like Treadwell in the same game. I think that at 3,500, he's part of some of my cousins and Jet stacks. I'll have a little bit of digs, but I'm more interested in Treadwell, Thielen, and Rudolph is going to have a 2-touchdown game coming one of these days. But I really like obviously the receiving in that game. I like Chester Rogers in the spot he's in, but I just want to point out that I think he's facing maybe like one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the NFL. I don't think this is like the dream matchup like it was last week, and he still barely got there last week thanks to a late touchdown. I had him everywhere, so I was happy for it, but I don't know that he's not like this lockdown play. I would rather jump up.
Buffalo's defense isn't bad. Like, we just think Buffalo's
their corners are spectacular. Their pass defense is actually really good. They have the best. They have maybe the best corner in the. His name is escaping me right now. He's the best corner in the NFL. Yeah, he's this guy. This guy is really good.
I heard Darrelle Revis was the best one.
He was. He was at one point. But also, you missed the most obvious one. Like, I don't care what happened after Kupp got hurt last week. Just play Josh Reynolds. Like, take a shot. That's a great place to take a shot.
Didn't somebody else, or you're saying you don't care, but didn't somebody else get some run besides Reynolds?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of Everett.
Look, if we hear more by the end of the week, then we could go that way. As of right now, I'm going to bet on the guy who's at least flashed the upside before, and I think is more talented. So that's where I would go.
All right, we're running short in time. We got to get to our silliness and our nonsense in a few minutes. You guys, Grant, you have any tight end takes for us? Because we touched on Gronk. Certainly interesting at 6K, but he's not been fully unleashed just yet, obviously. And Njoku, I'm not sure if we had kind of a run through and some technical issues. So I know we talked about Njoku, maybe if not on this show, the previous show that nobody else heard. Tight end takes, Grant, go.
The top 4 scoring tight ends, point per dollar, on the slate will be Kittle, Njoku, Charles Clay, and Zach Ertz.
Okay. I don't mind Burton. I guess I don't like the Bears this week. I like a lot of the Bears players. I don't know if I feel great about one in particular, but in tournaments, I think a bunch are in play. Bobby, what say you as far as tight ends?
I agree with all those, but I would probably err with Rudolph over Ertz.
Rudolph won't get a catch.
Grant, you want to say all that stuff about – this is the guy who was saying last week he went on a rant about how you can't –
Sounds good.
We can't play Eric Ebron against this Jets team because they don't let any touchdowns. Not only did he catch one, the backup tight end caught two. They had like 19 targets between the two of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Grant. It doesn't matter.
Nope. By the way, he was worse point per dollar than Vance McDonald, so suck it.
That doesn't mean anything. That has nothing to do with anything. Nothing.
Yeah, I said play Vance McDonald over him.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. You said how he was a terrible play. How he'll be terrible play against the Jets. Terrible. He was injured, so not only he caught a touchdown, but the backup caught a touchdown too.
Yeah, and Vance McDonald was better point per dollar.
That has nothing to do with it.
And so is Hooper, and so is Brate.
The dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And
why would you pay up $2K for him when you can't get Gurley then? When you can
really just say Brate? Did you really just say Brate was better point per dollar? The guy had one catch. Brate, don't just start throwing things out there and expect I'm not going to catch it. You can't just make stuff up and throw it out there. Cameron Brate is better point per dollar? No, he wasn't.
I was thinking O.J. Howard.
Cameron Brate literally was the worst point per dollar play. Anybody who played Cameron Brate this last week, that was a mistake.
So this is a segue. I think that's the end of our analysis. This is a segue into our Twitter deal. So last week, now to be fair, I picked Brate under the assumption that Howard wasn't going to play. I didn't realize they were going to shoot him up for the game or whatever. He was supposed to be out 2 to 4 weeks. I thought Brate was going to be fully unleashed. I picked Cameron Brate. One of you guys picked Hooper. Somebody else, I think, picked CJ Uzoma, if I'm not mistaken. Whoever gets the lowest score has to tweet out. And despite the fact my guy's scoring a touchdown, I thought I was cruising, playing with the house's money after the first play of the game, whatever it was. Brate scored really early. Grant, it appears I lost.
Yes, you did. And you guys all called me crazy for McDonald. But
yeah,
you're not.
What am I tweeting out?
It still was wrong.
Huh?
I just said it was so wrong to do with when you have Austin Hooper right there.
I mean, you can play both in the same lineup.
That's what I said. Grant, you want to flash back to last week's show for those people who listened. I was the one who said you could play both two tight ends in the same lineup last week.
You said both Brate and Hooper.
I said or Ebron and Hooper. I said or Njoku and Hooper.
Bobby, it doesn't matter. They're all outscored by Albert Wilson, which all of us saw coming.
Get out of here, Grant.
Hey, Bobby, quick question. Do you think Hooper benefited from Sanu and Ridley getting hurt?
Do I think no, first of all, by that point, I think he had 15 or 14 fantasy points when Sanu went out. No, 13. He'd already caught the touchdown. So I don't think the Sanu one had much of an effect. And I honestly don't. Look at what the receivers have done against Tampa Bay this year. They've given up like an average of 27 fantasy points. Like, I'm not kidding you. These numbers are fucking, excuse me.
Darn it, Bobby. Now we have to remember when
excuse me. They're frightening. They're frightening how bad they are against the tight end. I'm just going to keep riding against them. David Njoku's going to have a monster week against Tampa Bay. Anyway, sorry. Guys.
What am I speaking about this week?
All right, so I only gave you one option because you insulted Vance McDonald so much last week, and I wasn't happy about that.
I like options. Why would I only get one choice? This is ridiculous.
Because I think you're going to enjoy this. After years of my buttocks descending to the ground and my rear skin no longer able to withstand the ravish of time, I've decided to go with the Kardashian or hashtag Kardashian butt implants, hoping I start to look like that babe I'm always watching on TV. Hashtag my butt don't lie. Hashtag absolutely epic early week podcast.
Yeah, you think that I'm sorry, your inclination, your first instinct was that I would appreciate this tweet?
Yeah, did you not?
I mean,
is it that bad?
If I say I'm indifferent, I'm probably rounding up. But hey, it's the game. This is what I signed up for so be it. I just look forward to my mentions. This is gonna be fun for sure. And just don't. You're racing the stakes. Just don't lose the rest of the way. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, I don't lose. We have to figure out what are our bets this week. So Bobby's all over Kyle Rudolph. I'm saying that's.
Oh, let me pick up.
No,
Kyle
I'm not.
Rudolph.
I'm absolutely not all over Kyle Rudolph. I'm all over that game, and I said I preferred in order Thielen, then Treadwell, then Rudolph. I wasn't.
Oh, Treadwell. You can have Treadwell. I'll take any receiver against them.
Point per dollar. Go ahead.
Oh gosh! Oh, this makes it funny. Excellent.
What are you have no idea what you're talking about here. You just threw a silly comment out without understanding what you're.
Treadwell's not good.
Not, okay. So who?
I'm taking Jermaine Kersey.
I got it before you. I believe.
Not even my favorite point per dollar player, and that's what it's really frustrating me that I have to take him. But
I'll take Jermaine Kersey. You take Antonio Callaway, Dean. Jermaine Kersey.
I'll take because I like Callaway.
You'll take Snead. All right, perfect.
Bobby, you can't block players. You get the player. That's it.
I didn't know when I opened this up that I was going to be playing Treadwell versus the field. Like
Bobby.
I'm still okay with it. I'm okay with it. He's going to have a big game. I called it with Godwin last week. It's the same thing. It's going to.
Everyone called it with Godwin and every player from that
all
entire
6%
game.
of them. All 6% of them.
It was only 6%. Oh,
great job.
Way more
great job, guys. Great job.
Grant, I will yield. I will be nice. I don't know why I'm being nice since the tweet is ripped away. But I will yield Curse, and I will take the revenge game that is Willie Snead the 4th.
All right, sounds good. That makes fun.
That.
And by the way, you will yield Curse. I was the one talking about how I loved him all podcast long, and you don't.
I should be taking Robbie Anderson, by the way. I liked him.
In my notes, that was like the first cheap guy I looked at when I saw a number was out. I take notes for this podcast, guys.
Fair enough.
By the way, we made it through this podcast without mentioning like the highest. We finally got a ceiling game from Cole Beasley.
Yeah.
How about that?
Never going to happen. I mean, I don't want to talk
34 pointers. Come on, let's go, Cole Beasley.
Is he in your theory, Bobby? If it roll out like just kind of play the top
stuff, I absolutely think he's one of them. I'll tell you why. They don't have anybody to throw the ball to. Nobody. So you got to be involved. Well, look what just happened. He had 9 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Why couldn't that happen again? And he's not going to be owned again. I like the.
Well, you can always point to somebody some week and say, why can't it happen again?
Washington defense is better is good at covering everybody, which is actually better for Beasley historically. No, you can't do it with everybody, but he could definitely be one of the guys because he's flashed. He's getting work on a team where there's nobody else, and they're going to be passing a ton. Why wouldn't you take a shot at it?
Why would they be passing it? What makes you think they'll be passing it a ton?
Because Washington's going to be ahead in this game because Washington's a much better team.
I mean, people thought that about Jacksonville.
Washington's a 1-point favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be higher. I have no idea why they're
one. Washington, if you're that confident.
Here's a bet. Here's a side bet. You want to make a bet that's 3 by the time the weekend comes around?
I'll take a bet that's 3. I'll make a bet that's 3.
That's 2 full points.
No, I think it's 1.5 right now. So Dean got it wrong. But yeah,
I don't. It already jumped. Already jumping.
Did it open at 1.5 at 1?
I don't know. That's just what Dean said. I have no idea.
And we got to give away a T-shirt, guys. We got to give away a T-shirt. We got to throw out a new question for this week. Grant, remind the people, what was the question last week?
Best dance move at a wedding. So there were a few decent ones on there. Orange Justice, which is a Fortnite dance. I don't know if anyone really knows how to do that well, but the Lane, of course, the Napoleon Dynamite dance, the Sprinkler, which was a fantastic one, the Worm, the Robot, the Carlton, something reference from Archer, which I appreciated, and the Kitten Play dance were the ones we came up with.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one, but I think, gosh,
if only somebody would have suggested the Iggy Shuffle, I would be interested. But Bobby, amongst those, what kind of jumps out for you?
Wait, I'm sorry. The Carlton is so far and away the winner for me. There's no dance that better sums up everything that makes me happy, and that I go. It's like a lot of my friends. You go up and do it with your friends when you see them. It's like a funny. For me, it's the one that's.
None of my friends are good enough dancers to do the Carlton. It's really tough to do well.
Grant, the next time I see you, the first thing I give Grant the usual hug and kiss that I do, I'm going to do a little Carlton dance when I go see him.
All right. Can we get that recorded and throw it in the Twitter machine? That'll be fun.
Maybe if you win a different bet that I actually get to select, but I just fall into. I'm probably not going to be playing Laquan Treadwell in my bet for the Carlton dance.
Grant, you're going to decide. It's going to come down to the Carlton and the Sprinkler. I'm going to throw a Sprinkler into the conversation. You break the tie.
I mean, I'm going with the Sprinkler. The Carlton's a better dance. It's just so tough to do, and there's nothing I love more than a big middle-aged man going into the middle of a wedding circle and doing the Sprinkler. Is that
Bobby's
a wedding?
Very upset, by the way. I can hear Bobby is very angry. It's a democracy. It's 2 versus 1, Bobby. Nothing you can do here.
I know.
That's
it. That's why hence my exhale, man. There's nothing I can do. All I had to do is exhale.
So it was Home Team 44 was the winner.
Yeah, dude, slide into my DMs, Home Team 44, and we'll make sure you get yourself a nice, comfortable RotoGrinders t-shirt. In the comment section this week, we want you guys to tell us the answer to the question Grant's going to ask. What's the question, Grant?
I forgot what question we decided on. Oh, we had one for next week. Oh, best tattoo. Best tattoo. Gifts are encouraged. I know there's one that's immediately going to go up there that will immediately be shot down by me because I've seen the GIF way too often. But gifts and pictures, nothing not suitable for work on there. Throw them on in.
Well, it's got to be a picture, doesn't it? Like you can't have a description of a tattoo.
There are a lot of gifs of people with tattoos.
Yeah, and it'd be nice if it's actually somebody's personal tattoo that's so terrible. Then we're looking for funny. What are we looking for? What are the judges looking for?
I don't know. I'll know when I see it.
There you go. Again, throw that GIF into the comment section when you see on rotogrinders.com when you see the absolutely early Epic Week podcast posted. It's like a 1 in 15 chance you guys get yourself a free t-shirt, have a little fun, and reward you for listening to our nonsense for an entire hour. That is the pod for the road. You got anything for us, Bobby, before we step aside and get out of here? It sounds like Bobby may have just left. I heard a door shut.
No, that was not on my end at all.
Bobby, someone's in the room. Someone's in the room. Call the cops.
I'd like to add that I think that Todd Gurley is still going to break the touchdown record, as I said last week, Grant, and that people should just play him in DFS. Find the money elsewhere.
Here's an interesting thing on the Monday through Thursday slate. Shaquan Barkley is going to outscore Todd Gurley full point PPR by 10 points.
That actually is possible.
10 points.
Well, he's going to have 72 catches. It's funny we didn't talk about Todd Gurley in this slate. It's like just assume like he's really, really good. If you guys can pay for him, basically play him. Grant, do you have a rant for the road by chance? Do you have one on layaway? Do you have something to get us out of here as far as that in the pod?
Oh yeah, I've been playing some video games lately because NBA hasn't started up and I have too much free time. But I have a lot of these. I have a Friday the 13th game, and there's I realize now how many little kids, like 12-year-old kids, are just playing this game and how weird they are. I had one guy who was the killer, and he just kept coming up to me and screaming, "Let me see them toes" in the creepiest voice possible, telling me to Reddit.
Is that something you can do in the game? Can you show off your toes? I don't play the game.
Hilarious. That is hilarious.
I mean, there is some like some of the like avatars or whatever in there are girls in bikinis and yeah, like the kids say the weirdest things. Like the kids say the darndest things show. If it was nowadays, oh my gosh, it would be so vulgar. It would be pretty much R-rated because kids are very vulgar these days.
Not back in your day, or certainly Bobby wasn't vulgar with his F-bombs. I'm sure he learned that in his later years.
I mean, I remember being
I encourage my children to curse, so I have no problem with it myself.
I didn't really curse. And, like there was a 2-year period when I cursed as a kid, and it was always on instant messenger. Like that's what it was for me back in the day. Instant messenger when you're talking to your friends and you drop a few F-bombs and S-bombs and whatnot. You thought you were cool. Nowadays, kids actually talk through a microphone and Skype and stuff. So, kids got dirty mouths.
It really dates the story when you say it's through instant. It wasn't through like AOL or Prodigy or Yahoo or whatever. It's through instant messenger.
Oh, I guess it was AOL. It was AIM, I guess was what it was. AOL.
There you go. Grant, ASL, question mark?
What was that?
Come on. Seriously?
Oh, I remember what it was. What was it?
That's it. That's the podcast. We're going to step aside.
What was it?
We'll tell you after. Age, sex, location. Come on.
Age, sex, location.
Bobby knows this. Yeah. All right.
29, male, my parents' basement.
He's Grant. He's Bobby. Thanks for listening to us. That was the absolutely epic early Week 7 podcast. Good luck in Week 7. We're out of here.
See you, kids.